I was reborn at the exact moment I reached for the wrong glass. The one meant for my boss. This time, I didn't take it. I watched Dominic Sterling lift the glass and drink it himself, like he'd done 100 times before, confident, distracted, untouchable. His eyes were already searching the room, already impatient, already thinking about the woman he truly loved. Celeste. In my past life, I was Dominic's secretary. I was the person who made his world run smoothly, his calendar, his meetings, his deals, his sleep. And somewhere along the way, I fell in love with him in that quiet, humiliating way you don't admit out loud. That night at the company banquet, someone slipped something into the wine. In my past life, it hit me first because I picked up the wrong glass. I remember the heat crawling under my skin, the dizziness, the way Dominic's voice sounded far away when he told me to call Celeste. I remember how I didn't. I remember how I clung to him instead, desperate and selfish, terrified that if he left, I'd lose him forever. I kept him there. I made him stay. And not long after, I found out I was pregnant. Dominic didn't marry me because he loved me. He married me because the headlines would have destroyed him if he didn't. Because the board would have forced his hand. Because he couldn't afford a scandal. I tried to pretend it meant something anyway. I tried to convince myself that a ring could turn obligation into devotion. Then the day I went into labor, when everything went wrong, when the room turned frantic and cold, Dominic received news that Celeste had been found after a fall. People whispered that she couldn't bear the grief of losing him, that she'd done it because he'd married me. Dominic stormed into the hospital like a man possessed. He sent people away. He ordered silence. He looked at me like I had stolen a life that was never meant to be mine. And I didn't make it. The last thing I heard, through the blur and the panic and the fading sound of monitors, was Dominic's voice, steady, furious, final. If you hadn't gotten pregnant, I never would have been forced to marry you. Then everything went dark. So when I opened my eyes again and found myself back in that banquet hall, back on the night of the poisoned wine, I knew exactly what was happening. I was awake. I was reborn. Iris, Dominic snapped, his voice sharp and familiar, like a leash tugging hard. Call Celeste right now. Hearing that command again sent a cold jolt through my spine. For a split second, my body remembered the fear. The old reflex. The need to please him. Then I breathed in, slowly, and felt the air fill my lungs like a promise. Without hesitation, I picked up my phone and dialed Celeste's number. Dominic's face was flushed. His eyes were bright in a way that wasn't normal. The drug was starting to take hold this time, because this time, it was in his system, not mine. He stared at me as if the room had tilted. His jaw tightened. His voice came out strained. Hurry. I am, I said calmly, and watched him drink the last of the wine as if proving he was still in control. Celeste answered on the second ring. My voice was steady. Professional. Empty. Celeste? It's Iris. Dominic isn't feeling well. He needs you. If you can come now, you should. There was a pause, just long enough for her to understand what I was really saying. Then she said, softly, I'll be there. I ended the call, looked Dominic in the eye, and smiled like I didn't know what I was doing. Hang on, I told him, gentle as a knife. She'll be here in 10 minutes. His gaze flickered. He took a step toward me, unsteady, reaching like I was something he could grab onto. Iris. The moment I closed the door behind me, I heard him call my name again, rougher this time, like anger trying to cover panic. I pretended not to hear. I shut the door firmly and walked to the end of the hallway, where the security camera could see me waiting, composed, untouched. 10 minutes later, Celeste arrived in a rush. She wore concern like perfume, perfectly applied. But when she saw me standing there with my blouse buttoned, hair neat, expression calm, something in her face shifted, relief first, then calculation. She brushed past me toward the door. Before she went in, she turned her head slightly and said, "You can leave now." Her tone wasn't grateful. It was possessive. Like she was reclaiming what belonged to her. "I already am," I said, and walked away. I took the elevator down, called a car, and went back to my apartment. I slept like someone who had finally stepped out of a burning building. The next morning, Celeste appeared in the executive office like she'd always been meant to stand there. Dominic sat at the head of the meeting table with a coffee he didn't finish. He looked tired. Not from the drug, he'd recovered. Tired from the reality of having Celeste close again, like a childhood obsession that didn't fit in adult hands. He glanced around the room, then spoke with that casual authority that made entire departments move. "From now on, Celeste is my fiancée," he announced. "She's also an important future partner for this company. You will all treat her with respect." Then his gaze landed on me, sharp and deliberate, and he pointed at me with his pen. "Especially you, Iris." I nodded once, expression blank. Celeste's lips curved into a small, triumphant smile, like she'd won something just by walking into the room. I gathered the meeting notes and stood to leave. That's when Celeste's voice floated out, soft and wounded. "Dominic, does Iris not want me involved in company affairs?" She asked, like she was afraid of the answer. "I know how important she is to you. If she's unhappy with me being here, maybe I shouldn't come to the office anymore." Her eyes shone with carefully measured tears. Dominic frowned, the start of irritation pulling at his brow, whether at her, or me, or the inconvenience of managing both, I couldn't tell. Before he could speak, I did. "Of course not," I said evenly. "But if you're uncomfortable with me, I'll make sure I'm not in your way." And without waiting for anyone's permission, I walked out. Half an hour later, my office door swung open. Dominic stood there, filling the frame like he owned the air. His eyes were dark. Stormy. The look he used when he wanted the world to bend. Instinct rose in me, old fear, old training, but I didn't move. He blocked the door with his arm when I reached for it. "Are you avoiding me?" he demanded. "Why?" His gaze raked over my face like he expected to find emotion. Jealousy. Anger. Begging. "Are you upset because of Celeste?" he pressed, leaning closer. I shook my head. "No. I'm happy for you." Something in his expression tightened, like my answer wasn't the one he wanted. "Is that the truth?" he said, voice low, "or are you being passive-aggressive?" Then he scoffed, cruel and familiar. "Iris, don't tell me you still haven't gotten over me." My stomach went cold, because I already knew what was coming. He needed to hurt me. He needed to feel superior. He needed proof that I was still beneath him. 3 years ago at the company party, he continued, "You kissed me when you were drunk. You think I didn't notice?" I said nothing. He smiled, but it wasn't warm. "The smartest thing you ever did was never confess," he said. "Because if you had, I would have laughed in your face." He took a step deeper into my office, as if he had every right to be there, and yanked open the bottom drawer of my desk. He grabbed a thick stack of printed pages, old journal entries I'd written late at night when I was too exhausted to keep my feelings locked down, and scattered them across the floor like trash. Then he stepped on them. He leaned down close to my ear, his voice a dark whisper. "I came here to tell you something," he said. "Yesterday, when I drank that wine, I saw the look in your eyes. You wanted to be the one to help me, didn't you?" My throat tightened, but I didn't flinch. He exhaled a laugh, sharp with contempt. "Thank God you didn't," he said. "Because if you had, I would have been disgusted." He straightened, looking at me like I was something inconvenient that kept surviving. "Stay away from me," he warned. "And don't make Celeste uncomfortable." Then he slammed my door on his way out. When the sound echoed into silence, I stood very still until my heartbeat stopped trying to run. Even when you decide not to love someone, hearing them call you pathetic still leaves a bruise. But bruises fade. I didn't want to be part of their story anymore. And I had paperwork to finalize anyway. That night, I packed what I needed and left. I deliberately waited until nearly 10 p.m. to return to the office and pick up the rest of my things. The building was quiet, dim, almost peaceful. The moment I stepped into my office, I knew something was wrong. My custom ergonomic chair was gone. For a second, I just stared at the empty space, like my mind needed to confirm what my eyes were seeing. Then my phone buzzed. Celeste had posted a selfie on social media, lounging in a luxurious office chair with a smug smile. The caption read like a victory speech. I just mentioned my back was sore, and he immediately gave me the best chair in the whole company. This is why it's so important to find a man with power, money, and thoughtfulness. I stared at the screen until my fingers went numb. That chair wasn't just expensive. It had been ordered for me after I'd been injured in an accident the previous year. Dominic's idea of generosity, his idea of taking care of what belonged to him. He used to be so good to me, I thought, and hated myself for thinking it. Now Celeste made one offhand comment, and he didn't even bother to tell me before he had it removed. I heard footsteps behind me. Dominic appeared in my doorway, hands in his pockets, expression annoyed, like I was a problem he shouldn't have to manage. Celeste has back issues, he said flatly. I gave her your chair. You're fine now. Any chair will do. I didn't look up from the box I was filling. Okay, I murmured. His frown deepened, like my lack of reaction offended him. He stared at me intently. Are you plotting something? I kept packing. I'm warning you, he said, voice sharpening. If you dare do anything to Celeste, I'll make sure you never work in this industry again. I finally looked up. I'm not trying to do anything to anyone, I said. I just want to be left alone. Then, because I couldn't help it, I added, isn't this what you always wanted? For me to be more professional? Dominic's mouth tightened. For a moment, he looked almost annoyed in a different way. Like a child who threw a toy away and got angry when someone didn't chase after it. Fine, he snapped. Fine. Great. You're just great. He slammed the door as he left. A month later, Celeste announced she was pregnant. Dominic was euphoric. He wanted to tell the world. The wedding date moved up immediately. The entire company buzzed with gossip and congratulations and whispered envy. In this life, the child was supposedly Celeste's. The woman he actually loved. And I decided to let them have it. As soon as my paperwork was finalized, I booked a flight to Italy scheduled for the same day as their wedding. That was when Dominic finally broke and came to find me. He waited until Celeste wasn't in the office, then pushed open my door without knocking. He held his phone out toward me, an email from HR glaring on the screen. You applied for an overseas transfer? He demanded. What is this? I looked at it calmly. His voice turned colder when I didn't react the way he wanted. You're so devastated by my wedding that you're running away, he said, like it was a fact. Is that it? I didn't answer fast enough, so he filled the silence with his own narrative. Ever since Celeste started coming to the office, you've been avoiding me, he said. But I'm going to marry her. So what? You're planning to keep avoiding me even after the wedding? I shook my head slowly. Dominic, I said, keeping my tone neutral, you misunderstand. I only see you as my boss. My mentor. I'm grateful. That's all. He laughed like I'd told him the funniest joke. Grateful? He echoed. Iris, everyone in this company knows you're hopelessly in love with me. Who's going to believe you're just grateful? Do you even believe that yourself? His gaze flicked to the bookshelf in my office, and his mouth twisted into a smirk. All these gifts I gave you, he said. You kept them so carefully? And you're telling me you don't love me? He walked over and picked them up one by one, a limited edition pen, a brooch, a watch, like evidence in a trial. Seriously, he said, you should put all this away. I'm about to marry Celeste. You need to stop clinging to ridiculous fantasies. I didn't argue. I just grabbed a cardboard box and started packing the items away. I'd been planning to get rid of them before leaving the country anyway. Might as well do it now, right in front of him. Seeing how calm I was made Dominic frown. He reached out and grabbed my wrist when I dropped the pen into the box. Iris, he said sharply, can't you be more careful? Look, you're bent the nib. I glanced at the pen in his hand. It was the first gift he ever gave me, the day I passed probation and officially became his secretary. For years, I wouldn't let anyone touch it. I treated it like a relic. Now it was just metal. You're clearly devastated, Dominic said, voice hardening. You're running away, and now you're pretending you don't love me anymore. He exhaled sharply, as if coming to a decision. Fine. Maybe it's good for you to cool off overseas, he said. Celeste is in a delicate stage. It's better if you're not around. Then he pulled out his phone and transferred money to me. 10,000, he said. Take it. Get settled in Italy. Travel around. Take a month to clear your head. He looked at me meaningfully, like the money was a leash he expected me to hold. Adjust your mindset while you're abroad, he added. Don't miss me too much. I'm going to be a married man. You need to get used to it. He kept talking, about logistics, about assignments, about how to hand things over, confident that I would always exist in the orbit he assigned me. He didn't know I'd been reborn. He didn't know this time, I was really leaving. On Dominic's wedding day, both the hotel and the headquarters were buzzing from early morning. People rushed with garment bags and floral arrangements and clipboards. While everyone focused on the ceremony, I quietly rolled my suitcase out the back entrance, got into a cab, and headed straight for the airport. Dominic put on his wedding suit, but instead of leaving with his groomsmen to pick up Celeste, he found himself walking toward my office. He told himself it was just habit. Just protocol. Just making sure everything was handled. But when he arrived, my office was empty. My desk was bare. The shelves were cleared. No perfume. No spare blazer. No neatly filed emergency copies of everything he might need. The only thing left was a standard resignation checklist for HR, signed and dated. For a moment, his heart stuttered. He told himself I must have gone to the venue early to help with preparations. That thought settled him enough to leave, to go pick up Celeste, to smile for cameras and pretend he felt nothing unusual. The venue was stunning, white orchids, crystal lights, everything Celeste had ever dreamed of. Guests took their seats. Music swelled. Yet Dominic kept glancing toward the side entrance, the spot where staff and key assistants usually stood. She's late, he muttered, checking his watch. His best friend and best man, Marcus, clapped him on the shoulder. Relax, Dom. Celeste is almost ready. Who are you looking for? Iris, Dominic said, brow furrowing. She's supposed to handle the press release right after the vows. She knows the protocol. Marcus gave him a strange look. Dom, he said carefully, didn't you sign her papers? HR said she cleared out her desk yesterday. Completely. She's gone. Dominic waved it off, too quick. She's going to Italy for a month. She'll still be here today. Marcus hesitated. Dom. HR said it wasn't a transfer. Dominic didn't want to hear that. In his mind, Iris was a fixture, permanent and necessary, like oxygen. She might be upset. She might be dramatic. But she would be there, watching him, proving he still mattered. But when the doors opened and Celeste walked down the aisle, smiling that fragile, triumphant smile, Dominic didn't feel the surge of joy he expected. He felt a hollow draft at his back. The ceremony blurred. The vows came out of his mouth like lines he'd memorized. I do, he said, and slid the ring onto Celeste's finger, his hand trembling just enough that no one noticed but him. The reception became a whirl of congratulations and flashes and champagne. Celeste glowed with attention, one hand resting protectively on her stomach as if to remind everyone why this wedding had happened so fast. Dominic drank too quickly. Then he stepped away from his new wife and pulled out his phone. He dialed Iris. A recorded voice answered, "The number you have reached is no longer in service." His throat tightened. He tried again. Same result. He opened his email, sifting through a flood of congratulatory messages. Buried among them was an automated notification from IT. Subject: account deactivation. Ticket closed. Employee ID retired. Email access revoked. Wipe complete. Dominic stared at the screen until the letters stopped looking like words. Retired? It was supposed to be temporary? He called HR, ignoring the fact that it was nearly 9 p.m. on his own wedding night. Why is Iris's account deactivated? He demanded, his voice rough. The HR director sounded terrified. Mr. Sterling, she said, Iris resigned. You signed the paperwork yourself 3 days ago? It wasn't a transfer request. It was a voluntary termination with immediate severance. The noise of the wedding party faded into a dull buzz. I didn't, Dominic started. She requested severance paid into an international account, the HR director continued, and she waived her rights to the stock options in exchange for an expedited exit. Dominic lowered the phone slowly. Iris hadn't run away to throw a tantrum. She hadn't run away to make him chase her. She had cashed him out. Across the room, Celeste waved at him, laughing at something a board member said, radiant in white and diamonds. For the first time, Dominic looked at the woman he'd loved for years and felt something sharp and ugly rise in his chest. Not love. Not relief. Irritation. Because Iris left. And she didn't even say goodbye. The sunlight in Florence hit differently than the sunlight in New York. It was golden, heavy, scented with jasmine and baked bread. The air didn't feel like a deadline. I sat at a wrought iron table in a piazza, sketching on a tablet, my hair loose, my shoulders unarmed by the weight of someone else's expectations. I wore linen instead of gray, sandals instead of heels that made my feet ache by noon. More espresso, Bella? The waiter asked. I smiled. Please, Marco. 2 years had passed. The first month had been hard, not because I missed Dominic, but because my body had to unlearn stress. I used to wake up before dawn in panic, reaching for a phone that no longer controlled my life. I used to flinch at the sound of certain ringtones. But slowly, the old version of me faded. I didn't just travel. I used the money Dominic gave me, plus my savings, to invest in a small boutique textile firm exporting high-end Italian fabrics abroad. Years of surviving Dominic's brutal standards had sharpened me. I knew contracts. I knew logistics. I knew how to read people who smiled while planning to take something from you. Here, I used that knowledge without pleading for it. A deep voice broke my concentration. Iris. I looked up to see Leo, walking toward me. He had that effortless Italian polish that made even a simple suit look like art. His eyes were warm, not possessive. The kind of warmth that didn't demand anything in return. The samples from Milan arrived, he said, pulling out a chair. And you're working on a Sunday again? I closed my tablet with a soft laugh. Old habits. Leo smiled. The Sterling Group sent another inquiry. My smile faltered for a fraction of a second. The Sterling Group from New York? I asked. Yes, he said. They're desperate for the new silk blend we patented. They're offering 20% above market. He watched my face carefully. Do you want me to decline? I know you used to work there. I lifted my espresso cup, feeling the warmth against my fingertips. In my past life, I would have panicked. I would have hidden. I would have let fear make decisions for me. But I wasn't that woman anymore. No, I said calmly. Business is business. If they want to pay a premium, let them. Just make sure the contract is airtight. Leo nodded. And Leo, I added. Yes? Keep my name off the front-facing correspondence. I don't want the headache. Leo reached across the table and covered my hand with his, gentle and steady. As you wish, he said. But sooner or later, the past has a way of knocking. I looked toward the Duomo rising in the distance, bright against the sky. Let it knock, I said. I changed the locks. Back in New York, Dominic Sterling stared at a quarterly report and then threw it across the room. Papers scattered like helpless birds. Get out, he roared at a junior assistant. The girl fled, eyes shining with tears. Dominic sank into his leather chair, the same chair he'd sat in for years, but the office felt different now. Colder. Messier. Like something essential had been removed and no amount of money could replace it. For 2 years, the company had been bleeding, not fatal, because Dominic was still smart, still driven, still dangerous in a boardroom. But it was a slow decline in efficiency that ate at him like rust. Without Iris, things slipped. Meeting minutes were wrong. Schedules clashed. Client relationships frayed. The personal details clients loved, the birthdays, the thoughtful gifts, the quiet follow-ups, vanished. And then there was Celeste. The door to his office swung open without a knock. Celeste walked in, glossy and irritated. She wasn't pregnant anymore. There had been no baby. 2 months after the wedding, she'd announced complications and then claimed she'd lost it. Dominic had been devastated, pouring comfort and gifts into her like offerings. But the story never sat right. The details changed. The doctors were evasive. Celeste recovered too quickly. Later, Dominic found evidence, hidden pills, careless lies, little cracks that finally revealed the truth. She hadn't been pregnant when she forced the wedding. She'd lied to lock him down. When he confronted her, she screamed, cried, broke things, and threatened to do something drastic, her favorite weapon whenever she felt control slipping. He stayed anyway. For public image. For the company. For pride. And because deep down, he felt like he deserved his own punishment. Dominic, Celeste whined, dropping a shopping bag onto his desk. Your card was declined at Saka. Fix it. Dominic rubbed his temples. I put a limit on it. You spent $50,000 last month. Celeste rolled her eyes. You're the CEO. Tell the board to mind their business. She moved like she owned him, sliding around the desk and trying to climb into his space, perfume too sweet, touch too practiced. Dominic gently but firmly pushed her away. I have work, he said flatly. We have a supply chain crisis with Italian textiles. Boring, Celeste scoffed, checking her reflection in the window. Oh, and I fired that new assistant. She looked at you weird. Dominic's jaw tightened. That's the third one this month, he snapped. Who is going to file the merger documents? Who is going to handle the client calls? Who is going to fix the mess you keep making? Celeste shrugged. Hire someone uglier next time. Then she sauntered out like the world owed her applause. Dominic put his head in his hands. The silence that followed was deafening. He opened the bottom drawer of his desk. Hidden in the back was the fountain pen Iris had returned. The nib was still bent. He ran his thumb over the damaged metal, and something in his chest twisted, sharp and helpless. Where are you? He whispered. He'd hired investigators a year ago. They tracked her to Italy, but the reports were vague. Living quietly. Consulting. Working. And yet the Sterling Group's most valuable supplier was suddenly a boutique Italian firm no one had heard of 2 years ago. He told himself he needed to go there for business. Only for business. The gala in Milan was opulent, a swirl of velvet, gold, and champagne. Dominic moved through the crowd, shaking hands, smiling on instinct, but his eyes weren't on the deals. They were scanning. Waiting. A voice called out. Mr. Sterling, please come meet the founders of Lumina Textiles. Dominic turned. He saw a tall Italian man, handsome, polished, calm, standing beside a woman with her back to him. She wore an emerald gown that clung like liquid light. Her hair was pinned in an intricate cascade of curls. This is my partner, the man said, placing a protective hand at the woman's lower back. Then she turned. Dominic's champagne glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the marble floor. It was Iris. And it wasn't the Iris he'd kept in a box in his mind. His Iris wore gray suits and sensible heels. His Iris lowered her eyes and stayed silent. His Iris was invisible until he needed her. This woman was radiant. Regal. Unafraid. When she saw him, her eyes didn't fill with tears. They stayed cool. Amused, even. Hello, Mr. Sterling, she said smoothly. Dominic's throat worked like it couldn't decide whether to beg or choke. Iris, he managed. You mean co-owner, she corrected, calm as glass. She gestured to the man beside her. This is Lorenzo. My fiancé. The word hit Dominic like a physical blow. Fiancé, he echoed, too quiet, too raw. Leo smiled politely. We're getting married next spring. You're welcome to attend, though it will be small. Dominic stepped forward, ignoring the shards crunching under his shoes, ignoring the watching eyes around them. Iris, he said, voice low, urgent. We need to talk. Alone. Iris glanced at Leo. He gave a small nod and stepped back, though he stayed close enough to intervene if needed. You have 5 minutes, Iris said, indifferent. I have guests to entertain. She led Dominic to a quiet balcony overlooking the city lights. Dominic stared at her like he was trying to memorize a miracle. You look Different, he said, helplessly. I'm happy, she replied simply. That's what you're seeing. He swallowed hard. Come back. The words slipped out before he could shape them into something dignified. The company is a mess, he rushed on. I need you. His voice cracked. I miss you. Iris laughed softly, genuinely entertained. You miss a servant, Dominic, she said. You don't miss me. No, he insisted, desperate. Celeste, she's unbearable. She lied. She's ruining everything. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. He reached for her hand. I know you loved me, he said. You kept those gifts for years. You kissed me that night. I know you still feel it. Iris pulled her hand away as if he were something unpleasant, and the cold in her gaze made Dominic's hope shrivel. Dominic, she said, stepping closer, voice almost gentle, let me tell you something. He leaned in, heart pounding. The girl who loved you is gone, she said quietly. She died the moment you brought Celeste into the office and humiliated me. Dominic blinked, confused, shaken. The gifts? Iris continued. I didn't keep them because I loved you. I kept them because they were valuable. His face went pale. You, he whispered. You sold them. I sold everything, she said, calm and honest. It paid for my first month in Florence. So, in a way. Thank you. She checked her watch. Your 5 minutes are up. She turned toward the doors. Go back to your wife, she said. You deserve each other. I'll divorce her, Dominic blurted, voice rising. I'll give you half the company. I love you, Iris. I realized it too late, but I love you. Iris stopped at the glass doors. She didn't turn around. She just shook her head, and the pity in the set of her shoulders hurt more than anger would have. You don't love me, Dominic, she said softly. You just hate losing. Then she walked back into the ballroom, straight into the arms of the man who cherished her, leaving Dominic alone in the dark. Dominic returned to New York a broken man. He initiated the divorce, and Celeste responded like a wildfire. She leaked private messages, played the victim in the press, and dragged him through a public spectacle that bled him financially and reputationally. The settlement cost him nearly half his personal fortune. The board, exhausted by scandal and sinking confidence, voted him out as CEO. The day security escorted him out of the building he once thought he owned. It was raining. He stood on the curb holding a cardboard box of his belongings. No car waited. He looked up at the glass tower, and for a moment, his mind betrayed him with an image, ghost Iris running after him with an umbrella, handing him coffee, straightening his tie, fixing what he broke. But there was no one. Years later, Iris sat on the terrace of her villa in Tuscany, listening to the soft life she'd built. A toddler with dark curls wobbled across the grass chasing a butterfly. Mama! The boy squealed. Leo scooped him up, spinning him until they both laughed. Iris took a slow sip of wine, warm with sunset. Her phone buzzed on the table. A LinkedIn notification. Dominic Sterling has viewed your profile. She tapped it out of idle curiosity. Dominic's profile photo was gray and aged. His job title read, Independent Consultant. She searched his name. A recent news article appeared, former tech mogul Dominic Sterling declares bankruptcy, the rise and fall of a giant. The article detailed his failed ventures after the Sterling Group ousted him. It mentioned his reclusive lifestyle and his obsession with reclaiming past glories. Iris looked at the photo they used. He looked hollow. Angry. And she felt nothing. Not hate. Not love. Not even pity. Just distance. He was a stranger she used to know in another life. Iris, Leo called from inside. Are you coming? The pasta is ready. Coming, she answered. She looked at the phone one last time. Then she pressed block. She set it down, stood up, and walked toward her family, leaving the screen behind and stepping fully into the life she chose.